Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the April edition of our monthly Community Engagement Spotlight series. My name is Jessica Desardin. I am a program coordinator in the Office of Community Engagement at MCW. Please note that this session is being recorded, and please be sure you are muted throughout the presentation. I'd like to begin with a statement from the Office of Community Engagement. We wish to acknowledge the Indigenous people who are past and present stewards of the land on which we pursue our just cause of a healthy community for everyone. We encourage everyone to use the chat bar to share comments or post questions for our guests at any time. This monthly series features community partners and the important work they are doing. We highlight their goals, motivations, and accomplishments, and the ways they have partnered with people and programs at MCW. Today, we are honored to have Shannon Ross from the community joining us as our featured guest, and Tony Whitaker serving as our facilitator. At this time, I would like to introduce Sarah O'Connor, our program director for the Office of Community Engagement, who will say a few words about the community's important work for the community. Sarah?
Thank you, Jessica. I'm really pleased to introduce you to Shannon Ross. Mr. Ross is the executive director of the community, an organization he founded in 2014 while serving a 17-year prison sentence. The community addresses the effects of the criminal justice system with two arms: pre-entry and correcting the narrative. Shannon is a founding partner of the multidimensional justice solutions firm called Paradigm Shift and an Ed Trust Justice Fellow alum. Additionally, he's a Represent Justice ambassador, a consultant with Marquette University's Higher Education and Prison program, and a graduate of the Masters in Sustainable Peace Building program at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Thank you, Shannon, for being our featured guest today. I would now like to introduce today's facilitator, Tony Whitaker. Tony is the program manager in the Department of Radiology at MCW. She is a thought leader and supports collaborative efforts around faculty and staff promotion, mentorship, staff wellness, resident lunch and learn experiences, and equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging impact initiatives. We are so pleased to have Ms. Whitaker with us today. Tony, thank you for serving as our Spotlight facilitator. I now turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Can I get a thumbs up? Internet's been a little shaky today, y'all, so we're gonna go with it. We appreciate your grace if that happens. Keep us in line with that. We're excited to have Shannon Ross from the community here, but we're gonna do a few things together before we start this very impactful conversation. So a couple of things. One, the Office of Community Engagement brings us together monthly. This is not easy. So I want us to show some appreciation for them in this moment. Throw up some hearts, throw up some, put it in the chat. Let's see those hearts with your reactions, because them bringing us together is no easy feat. And so I want to honor the mighty team in the Office of Community Engagement for doing this for us on a monthly basis. So that we're going to do that. And then I want you to think about this statement for a moment. As we talk about such imperative conversations, I want you to think about this, and I want you to activate the chat. Okay, we're going to activate the chat with this statement. I believe in the power of blank. Think about it for a moment. I believe in the power of blank. Put it in the chat once you think about that and share your words. I'm going to read some of these off. Fellowship, I like that, David. Love, absolutely. Connection, I believe in the power of faith. Community, knowledge. People, I love that. Forgiveness, yes. Love, motivated people, the power of change, unity. I believe in the power of transparency, the power of grace. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all. Thank you all so much. So as we embark on this conversation, let's think about what we believe in the power of, because the community is an extremely powerful organization within our community. Every pun intended today. We're going to be saying community a lot. So there we have it. And then lastly, I want you to think about questions that you might have for Shannon, but do not put them in the chat yet. Write them down. And then once we give you the cue to put them in the chat, we don't want to miss any as much as we can. So write them down first, and then we'll give you the go to put them in the chat. But feel free to put your comments in as things resonate with you as we embark on this conversation. So Shannon, welcome. Welcome to our community. We appreciate your time. I know how busy you are.
No, thank you very much, Tony, and to the whole, community engagement team. This is an honor to be able to kind of talk to everybody. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a conversation. We flow. So that's what we're going to do today. Nothing different. So how would you fill in that statement? I believe in the power of blank.
Of empowerment. I believe that empowerment is the foundation of a lot of the things that we all do. It's a way that we can get through a lot of the obstacles that are just inherent in life and sometimes involved, but don't have to be. And so as we try to create these smoother paths to living and to justice and to equality and to just, thriving, we also have to just have general empowerment to exist in the struggles that life is going to bring us all the time. So I find that, to me, that would be what I believe the power of.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. The power of empowerment. Absolutely. So we're going to talk more about how the community empowers people, because that's a lot of what you do, but it all starts with a story. I believe in the power of story, and we all possess a story. And when we use our story to inspire others, then we become powerful. And so that's exactly what I think when I think about the community and your journey. So let's start off with that. Share with us what you want us to know about your story and how the community came to be birthed. Tell us a little bit about that history.
Yeah. So as somebody who's involved heavily in storytelling work and narrative work, I always ask myself kind of like a dialogue in my head, like, am I giving the short, the long, or the medium version? Because at any given time, there's, various things that happen before you think the story started. And so I think for this purpose, it makes sense to just kind of go back a little bit to not like a lengthy conversation about it, but I'm born and raised in Milwaukee. I've been here my entire life when I have been free. And about the age of 19, I just finished my freshman year at UWM, the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. I was on the dean's list after being a very poor high school student, just doing enough to never go to summer school. That was my only goal. And I was about 2 weeks away from moving to North Carolina to establish residency to go to UNC Chapel Hill. Potentially, the hope I can make it in. And I subconsciously decided I wanted to spend the next 17 years of my life touring the Wisconsin Department of Corrections. And so that's kind of from 19 to 36, I was, in the Wisconsin prison system, and I've been out and off for about 3.5 years. And it was during that time inside that, the things that were already within me were kind of sparked interest in this topic of the criminal justice system, the criminal legal system, and just living with men inside and seeing the potential and seeing the traumas and seeing all the things that people experience to end up in that facility and in that situation. And that I did not have a lot of those. I didn't have any adverse childhood experiences. I didn't come from a life of like significant trauma. I've had like bullying and things like that, but nothing anywhere near the level that the men that I was growing up with and I was living with were having. And so just kind of bit by bit going through that time over the years, getting my bachelor's degree inside, starting in co-designing and co-managing a coping skills program that still exists at several facilities that we created at one facility when I was incarcerated. Had a blog for 5 years, and then eventually started this newsletter called The Community in about 2014. And the goal was to just simply provide with the folks around me and that were in different institutions across the state with more resources. because I was getting a lot of resources. I had a lot of folks that could kind of provide me with information or give me articles, and I was always very curious, and so I would pass that along. And it was very clear that people needed that information. There was a very strong lack of quality information I was getting to people, unless it was just on the mainstream news. And so that journey for me was kind of what just led me to continue wanting to find more ways to be of value from the significant blessings and I think gifts that I've had in my life that I don't feel any, I don't have any credit for, can say that this is something that I did and I have this. Like, it's just been things that I've been fortunate enough to have a loving family. I've been fortunate enough to, not have anything near the level of abuse that I know many people inside have had. And so why not give so much of what I have to try and provide a path to empowerment for other people? And so that simple experience, I think, is what, for me, made this be the path that I would take. And if I'm honest, I think that, I guess even saying that statement implies that I'm usually not honest, but it's a turn of phrase. So if I'm looking at where life would have gone for me, I probably would have ended up in some path like this. I just don't know if it would have been in the criminal legal system work, maybe education, maybe social enterprise, because just kind of the way I operate and the level of energy and excitement I have about kind of creating systems level change has always been there. But this is the path that I found myself in, and this is my life and my life's work all at the same time. So that's kind of how I think I got to this spot.
Yeah, thank you for that context. Your life and your work, you saw a need and you used the privileges that you had to help others. And I think that's a beautiful example of how we all have privilege. It's a matter of how do we use it to inspire and to your word, empower others. And so now you give birth to the community. It starts with this newsletter that has resources that's now being read by thousands across the country. And now you're in the space of activation, continue activation with partnerships. So let's talk about the community, the organization that you co-founded. Now, you didn't want me to ask you this question, but I'm going to anyway, because this is what I do. And one word, try this for a moment, Shannon, and one word, describe the community.
A concept that is kind of well known, but I don't know if it's the most popular, but it's the term Ubuntu.
It's
And I think that applies.
You're better now. You're good now. Go ahead.
Okay. Ubuntu. The term Ubuntu is kind of what I think would, for me, cover what the community is in one word. And I'm cheating because I'm taking a word that really means a whole lot. So I always find loopholes around things, and I found a loophole around your question. So that word is almost like a variety of things in itself. And what it means is I am because we are. And it's basically saying, like, on our logo, we have 5 different, figures together of different colors. And in this current space where I am right now, the office that I have is in a collective called The Beginning. And now our organization is one thing that's in that collective. And what has become extremely clear for me, which I always felt, very confident this is the way it had to be, but it's become more clear in doing this work, is that everyone that's in this space, every individual and every organization, are doing something important around this work to kind of create a justice system more worthy of that name, to create a stronger, healthier community, to address the unnecessary inequities or inequalities that exist. Life is always going to have things that create struggles, but a lot of things don't have to be there. And so everything that we're doing in this work, if you're doing it as best as possible, that's fantastic. But that is never going to be enough with just the one thing that each organization or person is doing. You need a collective effort to address these very different needs that people have and communities need. And so, as much as I think what we do is really important, I think it's a foundational element, and I'll get to the work in a second, because I know you kind of switched the question up on me midway. But the work that we do is hugely essential in this space on the criminal legal system and creating systems change. It's completely irrelevant if there are not other things going on and other people doing their work. And so I feel that we try to embody that sense of, anonymity, just melding into a larger project and a larger effort to create, really genuine strength and healing in communities that's sustainable. And if we do that as best as possible, we can kind of iron sharpens iron and be an example and be a better resource for other people to do what they do better. And it just is everyone's stronger because we're strong. And I think that would be the one term that comes to mind for the organization.
Yeah, that's a beautiful word. It means so much. What I appreciate about what you shared is honoring the collective voice, right? We're in a space of community engagement. So in order to be community, we have to engage. And that's exactly what the community does in the beginning building. Beautiful space. I've been there. I love the intentionality of it. And so let's talk about that even further. So the one word leads to more words, but you already started that, which I knew you were anyway. So let's talk about the community. What do you want people to walk away from knowing? What do you want them to know about the community as they transition into another conversation? What's important for us to know about what the community is doing in our community?
Yes. That question is the things that we focus on, like the programs, the programmatic, concepts that people might use that word to describe. That's the in-prison work we have, which is our pre-entry work, and we have our outreach work, which is our correcting the narrative work. And both aspects of our work are kind of semantical, like pre-entry, re-entry, correcting the narrative, changing the narrative. There's a purpose behind it. And so our pre-entry work is premised on trying to help individuals that are incarcerated become as prepared as possible prior to release. So we have the newsletter that, we talked about. We have a learning platform that we're building out right now that'll be national for anyone that's incarcerated across the country to learn about what vocational and career options are available to them and how they can start to prepare for those with our help well before they get out. And then we have a fellowship that we're also creating, which is kind of designed to help those inside. They're like so many formerly incarcerated leaders you see now. They were inside at one point, and if they had more resources and more guidance, they could be doing even more when they got out. And so trying to build up those individuals as just really strong connective points in each community inside to help those areas grow. Then our correcting the narrative work is, again, changing the narrative, correcting the narrative. It's about showcasing the successes and humanity and agency of people that have criminal records. We have presentations we do. We just did one in Green Bay this Monday. We have one in Iowa and Platteville this weekend, back to backs. We have our annual celebration, which is this year at the Medical College of Wisconsin campus, which is going to be a whole day event, August 24th, the largest celebration of system impacted people in the state. We also honor crime survivors and system folks who are doing really good work in the system. We have a podcast and we have our video series. And the reason for the two semantical aspects of our, titles for pre-entry and correcting the narrative, re-entry has a connotation of helping individuals when they're close to release or after they've gotten out. And it's akin to educating a child when they're 17. You've missed all the key years when you really could have provided and engaged with the person so they would develop in a much better way, right? When a person's close to getting out, when they get out, they're about to be or are lost in the sea of freedom. You're really not going to be able to do nearly as much as you could have when they had a lot more free time and like solitude in some sense. And so we try to create these pathways to success through our pre-entry efforts that help people the second they enter the system. Doesn't matter if people that have life are incredibly important in those environments. And it's for anybody, no matter what type of crime you have. It's just trying to saying this community overall needs better resources so people are coming home and the environment is healthier. So we're trying to provide those. And that's why we say pre instead of like re, because it's all before. Correcting the narrative, significance of that is changing has a connotation of clothing and diets change one day, change next month. It kind of, it varies where you go. Changing also has a connotation of changing for the benefit of myself. Like I want you to change your mind because it benefits me in some matter. Correcting is math. 1 + 1 is 2, no matter where you go, anywhere in the world, any time of day, any time in history. It's always been the same. It'll always be the same. Just like the fact that people that have criminal records not being seen in an accurate light, we're portrayed and we portray ourselves in a very harmful way. And also the system overall is seen as a savior and as a solution, and it's not. We can do better. And so we're trying to correct those narratives through highlighting different people that would challenge the idea of what a person thinks a person that has a record is and talk to the system at the same time about what ways we can do things differently. And so what I would love people to take away from the work that we do overall with our preparation and our opportunities creating work is that folks need to not run away from these conversations, and they also need to know how to more effectively engage in these conversations. And I think all of that comes down to storytelling. How do we tell our own story, and how do we help other people ask questions to understand another person's story? So those of us that have a record, we carry that negative image and that negative narrative about ourselves the same exact way that society has it about us. But we're then hurting ourselves, and we're then not able to move past into opportunities that are there or are not there, but we can create. And so for those that have a record, I always want people to kind of take away from our work. There is so much more you can do, right? There are so many people doing things that have a record across the country. I'm seeing success stories consistently as I meet more people. Folks come out from kind of their shell or their shame of having a record, and like they'll come to me and say, you know, I did this, or my brother's inside, or my uncle, you know, was inside. I'm connected to the system. I get it. You know, I'm glad you're doing this work. We need those to come out more, because the more people talk about and normalize the fact that human beings create crimes in a very difficult society, that will be able to normalize that mistake and then have people getting opportunities and not being held down their whole life because they have made those mistakes, oftentimes from decades ago. And at the same time, people that don't have a record, have no connection to the system, they may not care. They need to understand that there's an impact behind the way that the system operates and behind the way we hold down an entire demographic of human beings in society because of this record that is to the detriment of every community. It hurts us financially, it hurts us safety-wise, it hurts us just losing out of the potential of so many people that can be doing more if we give them a chance. And so that storytelling, the way we ask questions, the way we tell our stories in this space is what I hope folks kind of take away from the work that we do at the end of the day.
Yeah, thank you so much. Shannon, you said so much. I'm trying to wrap all of that. And I think it's a great pause. I want to hear from the audience what you heard from that. So please put it in the chat what your heart heard from what Shannon just shared. I would love to hear from all of you. One of the things that stood out to me was that pre-entry, invest in the promise. And invest in the promise of people and the potential of people. And I love that. And then the storytelling humanizes people. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too. Correcting the narrative, words matter. You all are extremely intentional about correcting the narrative, using that word correcting. So I honor that. Just honoring some of the comments that are pouring in, right? Because you have to sit with that for a minute. Okay, you have to sit with that. We have the ability to change systems. The community does what the Wisconsin doc does not. Let's talk about that, Lisa. Moving beyond the original narrative and creating a new one. Yeah, neglecting the huge number of people who are incarcerated negatively impacts all of society. I think we forget that. Thank you all for your comments. Keep them coming, because the purpose is not for us to just sit in conversation. We have to have the conversation. We have to have dialogue. But what are we going to do about it after? Right? That's what we're after, is that actionable item that's going to make impact. And you all are in that work in some way or the other, right? That's why you came here. So continue your commitment in bringing humanity and centering humanity in what we do. It gets really lost in so much that's happening in the world. And we see that now. So let's talk about correcting the narrative a bit more, Shannon. You expounded on that. I think it's a privilege that MCW is hosting this year. I see it as a privilege because I've attended the event, and I don't consider it an event. It's an experience. It's an experience. The community is bringing so many people within the community from lived experience and different roles, and it's powerful. It's extremely powerful. So tell us why we should attend this experience.
So this year, I have this disease. It's called, I can't just do something and be happy about it. I have to add like 10 more different things every time. And so we're hoping it goes well, right? Like it's a lot extra stuff we're adding this year. And so the previous years, I would say the reason was to come and really see these unrecognized success stories, because that's what we try to emphasize at the event. We try to tell and hold up and honor folks that are people that are in the system, whether they're currently incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, or again, a crime survivor, or even a system actor. We honored the parole chair who was forced to resign, and it was a really powerful moment when, you know, we had men that were up there who he released many of whom would not have gotten out anytime soon, some maybe never, and they're doing really well. And he was able to come in for a couple of years and just say, hey, I think these folks should be out, and this is my job. And in a sense, he was kind of punished for that, but that's a different conversation. And so we were able to honor him and the work that he did and the people he freed. And that would be, I think, the reason why to come in the past is just to come see the old stories, because it can't just be like me. It can't be people like, Ruben Gano and Adam Purcell and Ellie and Michael Haas, folks that are like doing good work and they run organizations and they're kind of well-known. Ed Hennings. We're, one example, right? But there are so many people who are going to get out and they're going to just quietly succeed. And those are the stories that need to be told more, because that is success. It's not like doing okay, that's success. The same version of success. We want to hold.
There we go.
The way that it's seen, because then aspire. Sorry, everybody, just continue to.
That's okay. We give grace.
Where I am. So yes, please let me know if that happens again. So that would be the reason to pass. Give grace. Thank you. So this year, what's different is that we're having a large installation to talk about the past, the present, and the possible in criminal justice reform. We're creating this with currently and formerly incarcerated artists locally and nationally, non-incarcerated, no like involvement with the system, artists that have just really care about this issue, they're also involved. And it's going to be a large just process you go through with a lot of different mixed media, artistic elements to show that story of what's the past of the criminal legal system, how we got this system, what it is like now, in some impactful ways of demonstrating some of the important parts that people need to understand and feel. And then you can go into an area with a bunch of different options to see what's existing now. So ideally, by the time people leave this, whatever they want to come, it's going to be a whole day event this time. They will have been informed, inspired, and then activated to actually do something, whether that's social media activity, following somebody, sharing something, whether that's donating, whether that's signing a petition, whether that's signing up to volunteer, or whether that's just kind of taking away some material that they can start to pass out and become a bit of an evangelist about this issue. So that's why I think people should come, is they're going to get a really powerful understanding of what the feeling and the impact and the significance of the way we approach criminal legal system and justice in not only Wisconsin, but America, and how we can do better. So it's not just let's talk about how bad it is, but like, let's talk about what's actual possible and what's happening right now as well. So in that whole process of, enlightenment to activity is going to be hopefully really valuable to people to come and get a sense of this.
Yeah, absolutely. So we honor the stories, but we honor the possibilities, and we find a way to see ourselves getting involved within all of that. And so I already have people saying, send me the information. So we'll make sure that as the community gets all of that together, that you all have access to join us. So thank you so much for bringing this experience to the campus. I truly believe it's a privilege to host it, and I'm excited to be a part of that. So let's transition a little bit. You talked about the collaboration, partnership. All of that is important. This is why we are all here, to how do we continue to engage more effectively in the community that we serve. But let's talk about how the community and your partnership with MCW. Tell me that story. How has that gone for the community as you partner with bigger organizations that might seem to be far off? Tell us that story. What has that journey been like for you?
Yeah, it started about 3 years ago. So when I first got out, I was in I had just a month before getting out, I had started my graduate degree at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And so I ended up completing that in the Masters of Sustainable Peacebuilding program. And when I was in that, part of my program was to also be in a partner assistantship. It's a term that they used. And it's just basically you're placed with an organization or a project to help them and learn and help at the same time, right? You're becoming more well-versed in kind of this sustainable peace building projects, and also, which is basically learning, like facilitating, negotiating, looking at all the theories of change around peace building and projects that have existed around peace building. There is evaluation. So those are the things we're trying to learn. And so in doing that, I was in a project with an individual named Dr. Laura Hawks. And so that was this resource directory that we were building. And so me and her kind of over time created like more connections and a friendship. And that was, I think, my first connection with the Medical College of Wisconsin. Not to mention, I think my cousin graduated from here years ago. So I was aware of the place, but I never had any actual engagement with it beyond this. And so from that, I think in the past year and a half, maybe, there have been a number of touch points that have happened. So that relationship with Dr. Hawks, we had a COVID vaccine newsletter that went to a variety of people in the Wisconsin prison system back during, I think 2020. And then we've now had a couple of health related issues, all focused on health. And we have been sending those inside to all of our readers. That is because of an AHW grant that we're working with Dr. Hawks and her team on. We have spoken, my friend Todd Jones and my friend Erica Garrity. We spoke in class to, I think, I don't know exactly the level of physicians, but these were physicians that were kind of up and coming, and spoke to them about the correctional issue, the reentry issue, the experiences of people coming home. And that was maybe early this year, I think. And now we have another larger AHW grant that we're in the final steps maybe to get. That would be creating a community healthcare worker training for people inside. And then there's also been, I think, this planning stage of the event we're doing coming up. But so just a variety of different ways that we've been working with MCW over the past year and a half that have been really, I think, remarkable and have great potential for some impact in the space. But I think if I go a little bit beyond that, there's a partner, a friend of mine, David Carlson. He does work in peer support space. And he was describing to me one time how they don't even talk about the term reentry in the work he does. It's all healthcare work, right? And he said, but it's all reentry. And that's kind of what's going on, I think, in this space, is that if you address the health of people, if you address the needs in regards to physical, mental, spiritual health of people, they won't really go to prison for the most part, right? There'll be a whole different level of prevention and solutions and the way we operate as a community. And so the things that are going on in any kind of healthcare institution, and one that's teaching that, right, and really engaging with the community around health, especially, that's all reentry work, right? That's all exactly in line with the work that we're doing, the part and parcel of the same thing. And so I think not only has it been great just working and partnering and having more things pop up and more people that I'm meeting at MCW, you, of course, is one. And it's been, just a very incredibly essential connection that already exists, even if the work wasn't happening with us, right? This is reentry work that you all do. What we do is healthcare work at the same time. So it made total sense that this would be a place to have our event and to be engaging more with the way the projects that we're operating.
Yeah, absolutely. One conversation can lead to so many other opportunities of it. And we just have to plant the seed. We don't know how it will grow. And I think that's a prime example of that. So really encouraging to hear that. We just got a couple more questions for you, Shannon, and then we're going to open it up. So I hope you all have been writing down your questions, because you're going to put them in the chat shortly. Not yet. Don't do it yet. Couple more questions. What I really do admire about you is your ability to connect with partners. The community has amazing partnerships across Wisconsin, across the country, honestly. Tell us, what skill sets or what qualities, what things do you specifically do to really make these connections and partnerships with people, so we can learn how we can be more effective in that space, as well as we as MCW, an entity, partners with nonprofits. Share with us that.
I'll give you two. I'll give you what I think should be done or what I've done that is successful, and tell you what I probably do that helps, but probably isn't sustainable as well, that I wouldn't really, encourage people to do. The one that I would not encourage people to do necessarily, that I think has been helpful for me, is I don't stop. And that's not the most balanced, sustainable thing to do, but I just consistently am trying to create more connections and learn more and go places and just understand the space as much as possible. My curiosity is the death of me at times. And so that's finding that balance that each individual has in there, I think, is really important. The things that I have done that I think are successful, that, are definitely more sustainable, are just being proactive about it, right? I think what I've found time and time again in the work that I do is there's a there's a line that I like to use sometimes. We take the bad things from the capitalistic business world in this work, and we leave the good things, right? And one of the good things we don't take is people in the business world. They will sell, sell, sell. They will connect. They will reach out. They will pester. I think that's a good trait in this space, right? We need to know what's going on. We need to be curious. We need to kind of reach out and make sure that we're making ourselves available and finding out what exists. And so I very, very much have found that follow-up and that follow-through and that saying, I like that. I'm going to find a way to connect with them, right? And I like this. It's a website and they only have a message box, right? I don't know how to connect with them. Like there's a bunch of ways to still find a way to connect with them and still make that happen and discuss like what you both are doing, how you can learn from them. And so I think that's been one that's really intentional. Another one is that I don't run from, not only do I not run from, I encourage people to tell me why I suck, right? I want to know what I'm doing wrong. I want to know what we can do better. I want to know what our organization is failing at. Doesn't mean I have to agree. Doesn't mean I have to say, yep, we should add that, because we have a very specific thing we're doing, right? And so we're going to stay in that lane, but I want us to do that incredibly well. But I also want people to tell me, like, what is it that you could be doing better? What could I be doing better? What overall are they think is not existing in the work that maybe I know somebody else doing that I can connect them to, or I can connect those two people to start something. So it's just that complete curiosity and desire to like know as much as I can and know everyone that has been very beneficial for me in that space. Because it's not even I'm looking for something for our organization. The vast majority of the time, I just know that I don't have to look for stuff in my organization or for help with our organization. If I help you two, somehow that's going to come back around to me or in a year and it's going to benefit our organization, right? So it's just trusting that if I connect good people, if I help people that are trying to do better, find, the way to get to where they're trying to go, to offer whatever advice for my failures, that's all going to come back and benefit the organization and myself in other ways. And it's just happened time and time again. I just trust that process.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I heard, Shannon, was one, humility, right? It takes a great deal of humility to ask people, what can we do better, and get that help. And then also this, always being a learner, always learning. The more we learn, the better we're able to impact and execute and support other people in this work. So I appreciate those two components of how you approach this. The reality is this, though. Nonprofits, we know, Corey Fells from Black Space was here a couple of months ago, and he shared that Wisconsin has the most nonprofits in the country. I didn't know that. And one of the things he talked about was it can be a very thankless type of role. We're fighting for grants, we're fighting for donations, we're organizing. How can bigger entities like MCW support nonprofits who don't have the resources, oftentimes don't have the manpower, oftentimes? What does real support looks like? And I know you can't talk for every nonprofit, but happy to hear what your perspective is on that. That's a new question. It wasn't on the list.
Anything else? I'm surprised you asked any question on the list, to be honest. So I've heard that before as well. I would love to know where that comes from. I'm not like saying it's wrong. I'm curious where that comes from. But there's this element of R&D that smaller nonprofits provide in this work and that larger nonprofits need. And so smaller nonprofits are oftentimes the ones that are closest to some of these issues. You have somebody who is mostly involved in the very thing they're trying to solve. Like I believe that the majority of nonprofits that are started by a founder trying to solve the thing they went through, and there was no solution for them. And they want somebody else to not have to experience that going forward, right? And so those are very, very close to the problem organizations that have oftentimes a fresher perspective or a more immediate understanding of what's needed right now or going on. And so larger organizations, I would say, I think, it's a very, I don't want to like get into a point where I'm saying what large organizations should do, because I have not ran a large organization. And I know that, we have a very strong tendency to throw stones at windows that we don't have any understanding of why it's up, right? And so I want to be respectful of that and not saying what should happen, but I think that I would encourage large organizations to be much more conscious of the things they cannot do, right? The things they are not able to understand, and being able to pour some of the resources they have as much as possible. I would say even have a fund for it into the what I call like the R&D section, which is smaller nonprofits, and help them address these needs in a way that clearly they're able to see more readily. And so, however that looks like, whatever each organization's ability is, whether it's people, money, whether it's letting them have a space or an office space in the large, building that a larger nonprofit has, a larger organization, I think that just looking at smaller groups in terms of there's this way they can see the problem that the larger group can't, because the larger you get, I think, like for me, every day that I'm not in prison, I know less about prison, right? I am less and less an expert on this topic every day that I'm free. And so I need to have people inside that we're referring to. I need to have people inside that we're pouring into and that we're having this communication and is engagement with. And so that would just be the one thing I would encourage folks, is to not think that don't have everything be done transactional or contractual, right? Really lean into and have relationships with these organizations so that they can be built up and that you can glean from what they're doing, and you can provide them help in doing that. And it doesn't have to be levels of bureaucracy and transactions and contracts and all this headache stuff. I feel like we do a lot of things because it's always been done that way, or because insurance requires us to. I don't accept that a lot of times. So I think that we can just challenge ourselves to do better, right? Human beings created this whole system. We can also create different ways of doing things. And so that would be my one encouragement if I had a chance to say something to any large organization in this kind of work.
Yeah, absolutely, Shannon. I appreciate that. One thing that stood out to me was honoring the knowledge and the wisdom that's already embedded into the community, and real relationship building, not these one and done type of situations because we need research or things of that nature. It's really creating those relationships before we ever need to ask of anything. And that builds the trust. That builds the trust. So thank you for that. My final question, perhaps, and let me frame this one up because you resist me on this one. So we're going to try it a different way. I think it's an important question because as nonprofits, people who are service driven, it's often hard for us to take a pause and think about what we've accomplished. I think that's balanced to look at what you've accomplished, who you've impacted. And it's never about us. It's never about us. It's the people that are beside us. It's the people that we impact in the community. So when I ask this question, that's the framework. Because what that often does is it allows other people to sit back and say, you know what, I can be proud of what we've accomplished without being prideful. So that's not what we're talking about here. So when you think about the community, you think about the people, the partnerships that the community has garnered. You think about your own team, a small and mighty team who I've had the pleasure of sharing bread and brisket with. It's a whole story, y'all. It's for real. Tell me, I'm never letting it go, Shannon. Tell me, what are you most proud of thus far when you think about it in that framework?
Yes. So you've basically prevented me from giving you the answer I gave you the first time. So I will definitely go a different direction. So yes, if I look at it that way, then I'm very proud to have so many folks that come out of their story and carry it, right? Come out from like hiding under the blanket and then wear the blanket in a sense, right? And so I've seen more and more folks that have come to me, that have messaged our organization, and have talked to people that are on our team or that are connected to us about like how seeing some of our stories, our success stories, how kind of hearing some of the stuff we talk about at some of our events and our presentations has made them more confident talking about this issue, or made them feel that there's more hope in the place they can go and what they can achieve, right? So I'm always really proud about that because my story is so much based on empowerment. It's so much based on a lack of acceptance of obstacles, and for the things in my life that have allowed me to have that mentality, right? I didn't just make that mentality. I didn't just sit down one day and say, I'm going to be, really determined to get through everything. It's just something that, for me, people have provided an example that I've been able to say, okay, I believe I can do this in a way that other people don't necessarily have, and we're trying to give them that, to show them that these things are very possible. And so I've been incredibly proud about that, about how we're spreading that empowerment through storytelling and giving people a greater sense of what can be done, and greater sense of just I guess mental health and thriving, because come from that mentality shift comes those other things, those benefits. I've also been very proud to see the way that we've been able to get into systems locally, the DOC, other states. I mean, I was invited to South Carolina to speak in their prison about maybe a month and a half ago, right? So these things where there's an acceptance of formerly incarcerated people leading this work. If I quote one former federal prosecutor friend of ours at a dinner recently, he said, "We've kind of decided, to just let you all have it because we don't know what we're doing clearly. And so you all have shown, like some of the collectively, you've shown that you definitely know where this should be going. So we're just going to give you our resources and let you handle it because we haven't been doing it correctly at all." So it's just kind of that aspect of very burdensome for us, because now there's a lot on some of our shoulders who are in this work to like not mess up or not have anything go wrong, because we don't have the same rope to hang as the rest of society. But it's just really, really, I guess, gratifying to see that all that work that was done while we were inside, while I was inside, is now showing up and creating, wide open doors and greater opportunities and conversations that weren't being had, 5 years ago.
That's put a smile on my face. Did you see what happened right there, Shannon? The fact that you were able to share this with us, the power of being and people, right? It reminds us to think about the potential of others. We put people in boxes and we do ourselves a disservice. So thank you for answering my question. I appreciate you. Let's get some questions in the chat as I ask my final question. I lied. How can we support the community? How can we support the community? What does that look like?
I mean, the obvious answer for any nonprofit is we love money. But beyond that, beyond donations, right? I'm always looking to have more ways to get into established entities, corporations, nonprofits, the larger places where we can have folks sit down and listen to us talk about, the importance of storytelling, the what I call the physics of guilt and shame, the way that we talk about this issue and we ask questions like, "What's your record? What were you in for?" And how that simple question can have a domino effect in a harmful way, not just on that one person you're talking to, but on yourself and on the community. There's this nuance and levels to it that I love to dive into. And so if we can get in front of people that don't oftentimes look at this issue, right? Like, it doesn't benefit as much to go talk at a place that is dealing with the social justice issue. They kind of have a sense of these things, but a business, right, a financial institution, a place where there's a lot of people in a corporate structure, they probably haven't had much exposure to this. So I love to be able to kind of come in, bring some of our team and talk to that, do a presentation. So yeah, those are things I think is just opportunities to get in there and correct narratives and to, talk about ways that resources can be leveraged to genuinely help people well before they get out. Instead of some of the, I think, get somebody one thing and then you've like done a good job to help them out, and then when they get locked back up, it's like, well, they failed. Like, that's so much more complex than that. And I'd love to talk to that for people to open up their mind a bit around, this issue.
Awesome. Well, consider it done, because I'll make it happen. So would love to have you come back and present on that to audiences that we all need to hear it. We all need to hear that. So is that a deal? All right. You shaking your head? Yes. I'm talking to you.
Yes. Yes. As you were saying, the whole collective about all of us. Yeah, I was about to like chat things coming. Yes, absolutely.
Well, I'm going to say thank you now, and then we're going to get to a few questions. Thank you to the community, your amazing team, for honoring the story, for honoring humanity, for opening our minds to the possibility. And, nonprofits, it's a grind, but I honor you in this space. I know that your heart is in the work. And thank you. Thank you, honestly. So let's get to some questions. Let's see, what do we have here? Julie, first of all, Julie, thank you for being transparent about your story related to your brother. So how would individuals with criminal records looking for a job at MCW know what positions, roles might be suitable, available to them? Is that a question for Shannon? Is that a question you could answer? Or is that a question for us?
Yeah, I think it's a question for both kind of. I think it's like 80-20. I'll take the 20. And so the 80 you kind of have to find a way to address. But the comment about I'm assuming some people's offenses may render them ineligible for certain roles as a first-time employee. That's something that, although it may specifically be a rule at a current employer, again, doesn't have to be, right? So like, even if that's something that exists, I would love to have conversations about how do we present to the decision makers at a company on ways that it can change. One thing that I'm finding more and more, and I'm getting more and more involved in, rather, that's like this boogeyman behind so much of this, is insurance. The insurance industry is a huge part of, the reasons that certain questions are asked, the reasons that certain people are denied, the reasons that, certain positions are not open to people that have certain types of crimes. And so, yeah, that part is something that can be changed. Is the only part of that question I think I can offer any value to.
Yeah, I don't know if we have anyone from the HR side, if MCW is doing anything regarding some of those requirements that we currently have. But I definitely think that's a broader conversation that the community can't answer alone, but we can definitely partner. So I would love to follow up with our team. I'll put that on my list of things to do. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate you. So we're going to go to Lisa. Laura, I see your hand is up. I'm definitely going to get to you. Just trying to honor the order here. Let's see. I missed my screen. Let me go back. Okay, Lisa, thank you for your question. To make changes requires laws. We absolutely know that. How are you doing with talking and connecting with Wisconsin lawmakers? That's happening for sure. Tell us a little bit about that, Shannon.
Yeah. So I want to first pause on the first part of that question. When we started doing the correcting the narrative stuff, it was from a standpoint of we were not going to engage in politics. And the reason for that is, in my life, I have seen time and time again that you can spend, and this is part of my motivation for why I wanted to get into this way we do this, you can spend a lot of time trying to change laws and nothing happens. And all the time you could have been actually changing community members' minds, the things they could do right there in their community, right? It's like, what's the quickest shot to change? The quickest shot to change is not laws, right? Laws change at a structural level, but laws can also then be reversed, as we've seen many times. So laws are not a panacea as the way that you solve this. To me, the way you really genuinely, sustainably solve any of these types of issues is people have to understand why the law was put in place. So people have to be directly spoken to and addressed and connected with. And we can't also connect with legislators when we need them to vote on something and never talk to them beforehand, right? Like, we have many legislators that are in power and positions that we go to try and lobby and get them to vote for a bill. We've never spoken to them as a group or as an individual. Why would they care, right? We're not a constituent. We don't have any relationship. We've never reached out until suddenly there was a bill. You have to have this greater understanding of this is a conversation we have as human beings, right? Who all need to understand things in a greater capacity. And so you start with like a grassroots element of having conversations in communities, and it makes it easier for legislators to potentially change things because their constituents understand it. They're not going to push it back. They're not going to like vote them out of office for it. So it's a dual approach, a strategy, right? So that's one. But then in terms of actually engaging with legislators, which is also very important, that's a relationship building component that I think has been realized by more folks in the work the past couple of years from conversations I've had with colleagues, that we can't ignore one group of the political divide because they're not like the ones that we would vote for, right? Like it can't be that way. You have to have conversations with people in general beforehand. And then when something comes about, then they'll be in a better position to solve that. And so we're, say, early stages of trying to create a way to have like a relationship with every single legislator and have like a dossier on like what it is that is important to them. How can we best connect with them and describe and explain the impact of this issue? But it's a larger conversation that is important. And it can't just be with lobbying one person when a bill is passed. Like, I think that's a way that has been at one of the reasons why we've struggled to get a lot of these things changing, and things that we've gotten some success on. I've seen that be because you're directly working with people well before the request for a change happens. So it's kind of those two different things that we're engaging in, and it requires a lot more work for sure. So we're we're talking. I think I'm familiar with Lisa's work, and I'm really grateful that she's here to kind of ask that question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you for that reality, right? It takes a lot of conversations, grassroots effort, and finding some commonality in terms of how we can move forward collectively in a productive way. So we're at 1 o'clock. This was good. More questions are coming in, and I'm sorry we won't be able to get to all of them. We'll try to follow up in email. But Jessica, I know we wanted to share what's coming up next, so stay tuned, you all. Again, please support the community. As Shannon mentioned, money is always good, but there's other ways to support the community. I think that QR code is on the next slide. If you all want to take a moment to capture that, that would be amazing. And thank you all for the beautiful comments. Please join us. Save the date, May 22nd, for another amazing conversation with another nonprofit community leader that's supporting our community in such a beautiful way. So save the date. More information to come from the Office of Community Engagement. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good day.